everyone. This is Pam Reese with Adventures in Aging, and I'm here with my friend
Gary Vandenberg. Hey, it's great to be back again, Pam. Another week. What are we talking about this week?
So, Gary, we have been asked a series of questions, and we're going to make our best attempt to answer those questions today. But before we begin that, I want to thank all of our listeners. Please share our podcast if you enjoy it. Rate us high if you enjoy it. If there's something that you think we can do better, we would like to hear that as well. But a big thank you to all of you.
Great. And we are excited about our new sponsor, Stridelight, STRIDELITE.com. .net, I believe. Sorry about that. Stridelight provides quality diabetic shoes, custom inserts, foot orthotics, and other lower extremity products. And they were on recently. We had Tyler on, and it was a great show, and we look forward to their continued support from Stridelight. Thank you.
Yes, and remember that it's just not diabetic shoes. It's orthotics for many, many conditions.
Isn't that true? Yeah, and I've been thinking about that whenever I'm walking around. I keep thinking about how important our feet are to our lives. So you're saying, what is our topic today? It's questions?
Questions that have been asked of us randomly.
By different listeners.
By our listeners.
And it could be, we've got professionals in this senior living, we've got relatives, got friends.
And people we've never met but feel like we know them.
And they said, now that we're up to our episode 12, I believe it is. They said maybe it'd be a good time to kind of refresh everybody about who you are and what's important to you guys. So
That's
that'd be
right.
great.
So Gary, let's start with you. You ready?
I'm ready. Sitting here with a clear mind. What's
ready for anything?
What's the question that came up?
What's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
Okay. Well, my career is obviously in senior living, mainly in nursing homes for probably 44 years now. I keep saying 40 years.
It's a lifetime.
But it's been my whole life, and it's mainly nursing homes and assisted living in those places. I think the biggest thing I wish I would have known is that companies were going to sell or close. How's that sound?
Yes.
I thought at that time when I started, my dad worked at the same job for 30 years. I thought, if I got in with a good company,
they'd be around forever.
Forever. And even the good ones were not around forever.
All the old players are no longer around.
And how about you, Pam? How would you respond to something like that?
So something I wish I would have known when I began my career were all the options in nursing.
Well, there weren't that many, were there? A hospital and...
I got to tell you, when I was in nursing school, a lot of my friends were going to go on to be a nurse anesthetist.
Oh.
And I was also on that path and decided, oh, no, I'm going to be a nurse in ER or surgery. And I thought I would take that path later on. But then as I got out and about, I realized there were other paths. And other departments, and like for instance back then it was doctors' offices or not so much. There were not urgent care centers and things like that, but I certainly could have worked for a pharmacy or I did not know.
But just think today how many options there are.
Today there's
an endless amount of options.
It's endless
for people that would have a nursing degree and really, even into senior living, at that point, there was just nursing homes, I think, for some reason. There wasn't a lot of other options.
That's correct.
At that point, now you've got independent living, assisted living, home health care has boomed, hospice has taken off.
There's a ton of opportunities in nursing today.
Wow. Well, next question that came in is, what is your biggest failure? How do you like that? Move that right to the top of the program so we can get our early listeners to hear that.
What is my biggest failure?
And what did you learn from it? Not so much what happened.
That's even making it tougher. Yeah. So when you think about your biggest failure, it's a tough thought, right?
Yeah, well, there's lots of there's lots of choices.
But diving into that, I think one of my biggest failures in life was not pursuing early on other interests and hobbies.
In hobbies?
Yes.
Wow.
I was so driven in one direction with nursing and my career in nursing that I didn't spend a lot of time focusing on other things in life that I enjoy. And if I could do that over again, that would be, I would spend a significant amount of time on those things I enjoy.
Oh, like hobbies and interests.
Yes.
Interests too. It sounds like that. Yeah, when you started saying I'm diving into it, she's going to tell us about some failure in your diving career or something like that.
Oh, no.
Never had that.
No.
Wow. And so if I was to ask her that same question, it's kind of a broader sense. And I would always get with these companies, and I could not say no. So somebody would sit around going, "Hey, Gary, can you help us with
course,
with
yes.
this?" Oh, yes. Never say no.
Right.
And so, when eventually we would sell or they'd wipe me out or something like that, they'd always say, "You're always one of our great, we always liked working with you. You always said yes to everything."
You were the yes man.
Yeah, but you should have stuck with your own job. You should have figured out that. See what I'm saying? So maybe for our listeners, when you come into any kind of position, always, or opportunity, even if it's volunteer, stick to what your priorities are first, what you're hired for, and then gravitate to other things.
So that would be similar to my answer to that question is know how to prioritize your day and your career.
Absolutely. That's a great thing. What's another question there that came in? It should be like we're pulling these out of a hat or something.
Yeah. So what are the best resources that have helped you along the way? What has been your biggest influencers and your resources?
Biggest resource. What comes to mind is the library. I was such a nerd when I was like
Gary, I thought about this the other day.
When I was in like 5th grade or something, we had a great public library, and I'd hike on over to there and hang out in there. It could have been the smell of the library, the books, who knows, everybody's smart.
That's the only way we got our information. We didn't have the internet.
Oh, yeah. And I remember going to like the reference department and had to prove I existed or something to get a book that was probably way outdated.
No, totally on the same page as you. I spent a lot of time back in the day in the library researching. There was a time that I thought I might want to own my own home health agency.
Right.
I didn't really know much about it. There wasn't the internet. I spent hours and hours and hours in the library researching about home health agencies.
Oh, the libraries. I still hang out in libraries. If you ever see that guy over in the corner, that's probably me. Say, "Hey, is that Gary?"
Did you ever go to like Barnes and Noble and just hang out?
Yeah, I couldn't understand why they have like a coffee shop in there. Are you supposed to like take a book and not buy it and sit over there and read it?
So I see people do this. It must be acceptable.
Buy the book and go home.
Right.
I don't understand that whole concept.
It's almost like a library, right?
Right. Now, the next question here says, what advice would you give somebody wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So my career is skilled nursing and rehabilitation, post-acute care leadership, right? And ultimately started out as a nursing director in skilled nursing, or as a lot of public know it as the nursing homes,
right.
And then progressed through the levels of that industry to ultimately being a partner and owner. Mm-hmm. And anyone wanting to pursue that path, I would say learn leadership, management, and a lot of public relations.
Wow. Okay. So that's good.
Yeah.
And why are those? Why are those areas?
Well, nurses have skill level, right? By virtue of our license,
very technical.
We have a skill level, and so when you enter any field that requires a nurse, they are hiring by virtue of your license and your skill within that domain. So when you want to progress through levels and reach the top, it's very important to understand the leadership skills, the management skills, and the people skills. And that's propels you to higher levels. You learn more skills as you keep working, right?
People skills. Yeah.
You learn that. And then incorporating some management skills and those leadership skills will take you on to other levels. Plus, dependability is a big, big deal. Being dependable, being reliable, those virtues don't ever go unnoticed, probably in any company, but very much so in the post-acute care arena.
Yeah. I often used to say when I would interview people, I'd say, you're usually hired because of your skills, you meet the skills we are looking for, but most people leave because of attitude. You're either sick of us or we're sick of you. Isn't that something? And
it's not always money. Right?
Yeah, and it's their
how you're treated.
The attitude, their attitude again towards us or us to theirs. When I was thinking about that question that we were just asking, the two things that came to my mind was, if somebody, I have like a general degree in gerontology.
I
right?
know you do.
And
it's amazing to me.
You know, a lot of people go through college and liberal arts and these types of things and spend a lot of money. It would have been nice to have like a RN, a registered nurse, or an LPN. You know, have something you can fall back on if this, you know.
If this gerontology thing didn't pan out.
And the other thing that came to mind when you were talking was the whole idea of having a mentor. And I never went and found a mentor. These days, through LinkedIn and these other things, you can go find a mentor.
Right.
At that point, I was real fortunate. A few mentors came and found me, you know, or I, you know, was in situations, and one of them was an attorney here in Northern Ohio, and he was a nursing home administrator. He was an attorney, well-known guy, and he kind of took me under his wing and said, you know, I'm going to teach you everything. And, you know, how wonderful that was. I didn't go find him. He found me.
Yeah. And I just want to say to all our younger listeners, know that if you're training a new employee, you're working with someone new to the job, you're befriending them, there are messages in what you're saying that will carry through with that other person for life. Or there could be.
Oh yeah. Don't. You know, people have said things that last with you for a long time, your whole life almost.
All right, you ready for this one?
Sure.
What are the best resources that helped you along the way?
I think we just did that one, Pam. So.
Am I rereading? Because I had another answer.
Why don't you share that answer?
All right, Gary. This is why it's being read again.
Perfect.
People smarter than me. Those are the best resources for anyone.
Go find people smarter than you and hang out.
Hey, it's okay to have people smarter than you around you.
Okay, great. Here, I'll throw the next one out. Here,
Okay.
I'll pull it out of the hat here. Who are the 3 people or 2 people that have most influenced you in your life or your career?
So, in addition to mom, dad, brothers, which definitely are huge influencers in life for me. You just talked about a mentor, having great mentors. And I had some fabulous mentors in my career. Early on, I had a guru that knew everything about skilled nursing and rehabilitation regulations and state and federal guidelines, and had just fabulous philosophy of care. And his name was Warren Page. And Warren taught me anything and everything I ever needed to know. Wow. And I would hang on his every word as if it was gospel.
Isn't that great?
Yes. Wow. He was very influential to me in my career. But in addition, just personally.
Yeah, in life. Yeah.
In life, my children, as they aged, as they have become adults, have greatly influenced me.
Wow. In what way? Why do you say that?
They bring that younger perspective, or perhaps that perspective that's going to about change, right? About change in our cultures, change in society, that maybe us that are a little bit older don't always, or not always in tune with. Mm-hmm. And so they bring that element of newness and challenge and change into life. And so I would say my kids are big influencers in my life today.
Well, good. Well, that's wonderful. When you were talking there, I was thinking, now who in my life? I'm trying to think about a couple of people. I would say, of all things, this is weird, my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Fry.
Oh, mine was Mrs. Amsterdam.
And so in 3rd grade, somehow I couldn't figure out how to read. Don't kids read like when they're in like 1st grade or something?
Yeah. I think you begin to learn.
Yeah. Well, apparently 3rd grade back then was like, you know, we better spend a little bit more time with Gary. He's not getting it.
Yeah.
And so this lady, she was wonderful. She would meet with me almost every morning.
And you've never forgot.
I would go and I could walk to school, and I'd walk there a half hour early, and she would sit down and go slow and patiently with me until I learned how to read. I thought words were sometimes when I'm out on hikes, I do a lot of hikes.
Yeah.
I go with people that know what all the trees are. I don't know what all the trees are. I say that's a big tree, that's a little tree.
And they tell you the species.
Yeah, they're going birch and poplar and
yeah.
They're, and I think in 3rd grade all the words look like the same thing. There was this connection there.
That's interesting.
The other person that came to mind was probably one of my first bosses. His name was Don, and he owned a nursing home, and just said, I want you to learn every department. I want you to go and get your administrator's license. And And at some point, he was like influential in me taking off to the next step. Going, it was like roll the dice. He said, go out and take a risk. And I always thought that was great when I look back that to have somebody that it wasn't in his advantage to help me as much as it was just benefiting me.
It certainly influenced you throughout your career.
Right.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Yes, pull it out of the hat.
All right. What is one common myth about your profession or field that you want to debunk that isn't really true?
Okay. And I thought about this in the last couple of days.
Okay.
And what it is, I was in a nursing home just the other day, and I began to realize if you were outside of this building and you'd be saying, oh, that staff, they're probably insensitive, uncaring, they probably, mean people, whatever. And then when you get to the debunking side is when you get in there, you realize many of these staff are family to these residents. They are the number one person in these residents' lives. They don't have anyone else.
Not in reality, biological family, but new family type of relationships.
Right. And how close people were getting. This particular center was doing little videos and sharing with people. And just the idea of the passion, the stories that they were telling me. And I go, these are more than just residents, aren't they? No, they're like family to us.
No, that's so true.
And I think sometimes people go, oh, nursing homes, how horrible they are. And I'm going, if you want to be around a lot of people that care about you, that's probably one of the best places to be at.
Yeah. And that's a great point for people considering nursing facilities or have loved ones. The staff of those facilities truly look at your mom or dad as a relative to them.
Absolutely.
And they become incredibly attached.
And I can't imagine the last year with the COVID and everything that's happened in the world, how they've lost their family. They've lost many of their family members.
Yeah, it was as heartbreaking to the staff of a facility as it was to the actual families.
I would imagine. So the next question here, I pull it out, and it says, tell us something interesting that most people don't know. Well, who knows what that question's all about?
That could be anything, right? That could be anything.
So what is interesting about Pam?
So looking back over my life, and here I am, a nurse and a leader in post-acute care, when the reality is that my whole life I probably wanted to be in entertainment, right?
Showbiz. Well, now you are. You're a podcaster.
Right. No, I was so drawn to plays and soap operas and
an actress.
I honestly think that I could have pulled that off somewhere in life.
You're never too late. I was thinking one of our future episodes should be about people that had a second life after like 60 or something like that. Guy that invented Kentucky Fried Chicken. He didn't do that till he was like an older person.
Right. And maybe it's never too late. Like maybe Gary, I don't know. Maybe I could play like someone's, grandma?
Older sister, yeah.
Right, okay.
Oh, that is funny. So, well, yeah, don't discount that. I know when you were talking about that question, I was thinking, what would come to my mind? And the only thing that came up, and this is weird, I'm one of those people that counts. I count all the time.
I know you do. Talk to us about that.
And if I'm standing in line and there's 4 people in front of me at like the bank, I'm the one guy that counts saying, well, it took that last one 30 seconds to get through the transaction. There's 3 in front of me.
Is this kind of
so
like
that's
a
like
savant?
A minute, isn't it? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, like a counter.
Yes.
Counting stuff. Isn't that bizarre? And
when did this start?
I think it's my whole life. Now, one of my brothers told me that our father was at a bank, and he would analyze every job position, and maybe he brought that home to us, and he would time how long every task took at the bank.
Really?
Yeah. So whatever efficiency manager type of position.
Do you share this with others? Like when you're in a car with someone?
Our family knows. The other thing is if I'm in like a situation that's kind of, uncomfortable, I count backwards from 19. Isn't that funny? Because
Gary, I am absolutely learning something about you I didn't know.
I go, if I just count backwards to 0, this situation will have resolved itself, or or else I'm going to do it again. I've counted back from about 9,000.
Okay, I don't know whether to praise you for this or to be worried about you for this, but it's cool.
It was a good question. I think most people will go, what in the heck is that? But ask yourself next time you're in line somewhere.
No, right?
You count and say, I wonder how long it takes for me to get up to the counter.
All right. Watch us all be doing it now. Okay, you ready for the next one?
Yes. What's that next one?
In your own words, Gary, what does the phrase adventures in aging mean to you?
Yeah, that's the name of this
That's the name
podcast.
of it.
And it was fun to come up with that name. I think what always comes to my mind is that it is in your mind. Does that mean aging? We recently had a family get together and we had a picture taken. And I'm looking at myself in the picture thinking, who's that guy, right? Because I don't see myself as this age. I see myself as an age 20 years ago.
You know what? I don't know that many of us do until you look in the mirror and then you say, well, I didn't know I looked.
Who's that person?
Who
oh, yeah.
you?
I've come out of the shower and almost screamed at, who's the guy in the mirror?
Yeah.
You know, what's he doing in
Gary
here?
back.
Who's that guy in here? So
I do it all the time.
But I think the whole idea there is it is an adventure. Sometimes we take ourselves so seriously, and we've all had ups and downs. And I think I've learned. The only time I ever learn anything in life is when things go really bad. How's that sound? And I've convinced myself when I'm in bad situations that I'm about to learn something really good. I just don't know it.
Do you cognitively tell yourself that?
Oh, yes, I do. At this age, I do. I sit there going, there must be some kind of weird reason that I'm going to learn something about.
So
something.
that is, what would you call that? Is that reconciling a change or reconciling a negative into a positive?
I think it's called giving up. How's that sound?
Okay,
Just
all right.
throwing your hands
I
in the
can
air
deal
going,
with that one better.
going, well, I guess we'll just move on from here and figure out, how to resolve this problem or this situation there.
So when I think of the phrase adventures in aging, for me, and a lot of what played into us coming to this title, is that life is truly an adventure from birth through death. It's all an adventure, whether it's fun adventures, learning adventures, sad adventures, happy adventures.
How people plan things out, and they never go to plan, do they? I would imagine.
Very seldom.
And how people, even if you go on a trip, sometimes the best thing that's happens are the things that are spontaneous and you kind of do off the plan.
So imagine if when we were, 3 years old. So 3 years old is supposed to be the age that you have some reconcile ability. And 3-year-olds are supposed to, that's the age where you learn the most.
When you're 3.
Around 3 years
probably
old.
Learn how to read. It's probably part of my.
Unlike Gary, that was in third
grade. Yeah. I got 3rd and 3-year-olds mixed up.
But so imagine if at a very young age, some ability to plan out your life, would it ever be what you're planning? And the answer would most likely be never.
No, I think Tiger Woods was the only one that came to mind. Didn't they start hitting the golf ball when he was a little kid there? But,
right.
Yeah, that's incredible there. The whole adventure aging, I think what's fun about doing this podcast is to talk to people. And everybody has stories, don't they? They kind of share their perspectives and say, gosh, you two are just like me. I had similar things. I went to that same high school. I had those same friends. I had that same
that same thought.
So It's great to have those types of things. Well, the next question here, it says, let me pull it out. It says, we've all faced that fork in the road. And I don't quite know what that means, but what was your fork in the road and why did you go one direction instead of another?
I probably had 100 forks in my road, through life.
Right.
And probably 50% of the time chose the wrong path. However, having said that wrong path probably led me to the right conclusion.
Right.
Right?
Eventually, yes.
But just to put it in, something digestible and something real, I probably came to a huge decision and fork when I had to make up my mind if I wanted to progress through the hospital system or if I was going to change that path and go into the post-acute care system. And at the time I made that decision, I was working in surgery, in the surgical department, which was one of the things I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. And I loved that environment. And I loved that fast pace. And honestly, there was a time when I was doing it, I thought I'd be there forever. And then to switch from a specialty department in the hospital to go to nursing facilities, right? To be a director of nursing in a nursing facility was a huge change in my path.
Oh, yeah. There's years ago, I did a survey of many hundreds of nurses and asked them and other nursing home staff, as to why they chose this profession, what led them there and why are they still in there. And part of the problem was they didn't have high self-esteem. Isn't that something that some of them said, well, that's the job I think I was destined to do only because I didn't have other higher goals or those types of things.
Yeah.
And the opposite, I think, is the case. I see a lot of younger directors of nursing, and they seem energized and want to do a good job and seem to be on top of the new systems and the new way of doing things.
So a lot of young nurses are taking that path.
I think that's great.
Back in the day, and I don't know if this is still the stereotype today, but when I first became a nursing director, I was, I think, 27 years old. And one of the physicians that I had worked with was asking me, oh, what are you doing? Where are you going to work? And I said, this nursing home, this 200-bed nursing home. And he seriously looked at me and said, Pam, I thought you wanted to be a real nurse.
Yeah, isn't that something? Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, that the perception is so weird out there about that.
But I can tell you, and I'll let all of our listeners know, that the nurses that work in the nursing facilities and post-acute care are incredibly skilled. And they have such a high responsibility making nursing diagnosis, passing on incredibly important information to the physician to make diagnostic orders, decisions, and the relationships that they have with families and the patients is vital.
Right.
And so their roles are incredibly important.
Oh, yeah. I think they use so many more skills than maybe some other positions in nursing in other locations. Yeah, that's great. When I was thinking about the fork in my road, I go back to the graduation from high school and going to college. And I did not want to go to college at all. Okay. This was a family tradition. There was no option. I remember my brother saying, we'll beat you up if you don't go, kind of,
Right.
And they were just joking, but the idea was, it was so intimidating. And, how, you stop and go, what would I have done differently? I would have probably done air conditioning and what is that? Heating,
HVAC.
Yeah, I would have been the superstar multimillionaire at this point.
Well, somebody
probably
has to be.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And how you make these choices. And I guess I just kind of rolled with it rather than really thinking about it. See what I'm saying? It was more like, I think I've got to go find a college and I got to go there. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that was kind of a path.
Yeah. But I always wanted to sit on a mountain and write poems. That was going to be my big
maybe
option
you're
B.
still well in life.
Yeah, well, that's
right.
That's
the great part of the adventure.
That is the adventure, yes. And so the last question here was, what is one takeaway you two feel or you hope your audience gets when listening to these podcasts? I think that's a great last question. Pam, what comes to mind when you think of that?
So when I think about our podcast, I reflect on the fact that although we are all different in individuals, our paths, our adventures are very similar.
Isn't that something?
Yes. Yeah. Our experiences have very similar tasks or steps that we all took to it. I also think that we have those relatable experiences, and I think some of those are funny. Some of those bring back some great memories, and sometimes they bring back not so great memories. But my hope and desire for our podcast is that after each and every one, someone takes away something that is helpful to them.
Yeah, and that it's an enjoyable experience there. I know when I was thinking about that question as you were talking, two things came to mind. One is and I've got a sister, and I always admired this because when she was done with work, that's when her life began.
I love that.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, her day wasn't over.
It just started, and I spent 30 some years being the complete opposite. I worked and then I went home and passed out. How's that sound?
But it
just to wake up and go back to work. Isn't that funny?
No, that's about your work-life balance.
Isn't it awful? And as I'm driving around, and have you ever noticed in the morning they have the traffic, on the television?
Yes.
And I'm sure they have it where you live. And I'm going, how come people don't live closer to where they work? How come all those people are going opposite directions?
Because you have to debrief.
Is that what it is?
I think so. You have to have time.
That's the craziest thing I'm watching. Why don't you move closer to where you work?
You wouldn't have your thinking time.
Yeah. And then the other thing, as a lasting thought, to our listeners, I really think stories are great. I'm just full of stories.
You are, yes.
It's an endless well of stories.
I love your stories.
Telling some people I'd not met before, and the lady looks at me and says, "You tell lots of stories." I'm like, "You haven't even heard like 1,000th of whatever's in my head."
Life is a story.
Yeah,
right?
And you think about the traditions, the history of mankind, right? You know,
my gosh.
before they had printing presses, somebody had to like memorize the Bible, right? Those kinds of things, and stories and traditions to pass them on to their next little junior tribe members or whatever they were in, right? So
those are thought-provoking statements.
And so we'll continue sharing our stories, and we'd love to hear more stories coming in.
No, for sure. And in fact, if any of you have a story that you'd like us to share for you, please let us know. We would love to do that. In fact, we are as interested in your stories as it appears we are in our own, right?
Absolutely.
So, Gary, we've reached the end. Here we are. It goes by quick when we're having fun.
Isn't it? And again, we thank our sponsor, Stride Light. Thank you guys for the support you put in my feet, I guess, and my shoes and everything.
No, because you do utilize them.
I do. I'm a big believer in their socks. Even though I don't have diabetes, I still love their socks. So I do appreciate that.
Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. Please subscribe. Please share. Please tell your friends to listen to us. And we love what we do, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.